One is that brands were trying to do too much and telling the creators what to do. I think that's a huge problem. Creators should create.
Today's guest is a founding member of one of the fastest growing companies out there, ClickUp. He's a master of branding, strategy, and influencer marketing. And today he's going to teach us all about influencer marketing, everything he knows, including processes, strategies, some hot takes maybe here and there, and a little bit more. So we're excited to welcome Chris Cunningham onto the show. And let's start out, Chris, with beginning of the journey. Tell us about your first foray into doing some kind of influencer marketing. I'm sure there was like a first moment where you had no clue what was going on. What was that, and who was it with?
Yeah, Blake, happy to be here. Thanks for having me. The first experience I had, so Zeb's the founder, CEO of ClickUp. Before ClickUp, we had a social media company. We were young, like 22, 23, and we started having early success in that we learned how to grow on social media before a lot of people did. We built this program that I'm sure so many who are listening used. We ended up selling the technology, but essentially early on, we learned how to like, follow, and comment to kind of get more followers. And in that, I started meeting a lot of influencers and those wanting to become influencers. So I met a ton of people, and I started like the Dan Bilzerians of the world all the way to, Damon John. We had so many kind of different people coming through and using the software. So I met a lot of people, and we early on saw that this would be a new thing. This is like 2012, 2013, but we realized the power they were getting because when you get those followers, they really listen to you. They're really checking your things as opposed to an ad that they would scroll past. So back then was my first kind of experience towards it. My first real, diving in was about 3 or 4 years ago when I worked with Elevator Studio and I ran influencer marketing. I was head of business development, running influencer marketing campaigns for them. And that's when I really got a feel of seeing the money spent and seeing the outcomes and seeing how important it is.
What kind of content were you trying to get from that? Because when you first started, I'm thinking TikTok maybe wasn't the channel that was out there yet. So I think now when people think influencer marketing, it's like, all right, I got to get TikToks out there because there's viral potential. But what was the content you were getting for those first campaigns?
So some people aren't thinking that yet. So I'm glad you say that, but I agree. It's got to be on TikTok if you want to go viral. Back then it was Instagram heavy, really Instagram heavy. That's where a lot of people were going, especially for these new, at that time I wasn't just doing tech. I had Oracle and I had BET as clients I was working for. But then you also had like CBD brands, water bottle brands, like soft drinks, things like that, energy drinks. And those were a lot different. A lot of that content was, it used to be a big deal just to get someone to talk about it, right? And then people became really immune to that. So when I was first getting in the scene, everyone was figuring out how to move away from, hi, I'm Chris, this is my favorite drink, into like actually providing awesome content and then sneaking it in, right? That became like the real cool thing. So yeah, it was Instagram to start. And then I think some of the cooler campaigns I've worked on, we did Ignite for Dan Bilzerian, which was a massive one. It almost did too well for him. We've worked with Fashion Nova. Sugar Bear Hair was a massive one that did really well. So it was fun to see a wide array of products and see what kind of works and what doesn't. And then doing it for Oracle. Oracle, no one really knows what Oracle does. So that was a tough competition to try to make them cool as well.
Yeah, I have no clue what they do, and I've been in tech for quite a while.
I still barely don't.
Who does?
And I worked with them.
Yeah, that's a mystery on that one. Do you remember how you were setting those campaigns up in the beginning? Like, do you think you would look back now and just cringe at how everything went, process-wise, content you received, or do you feel pretty good about it?
I'd love to say that I feel great, but I'd cringe. I'd cringe a little bit more in the processy part, like ClickUp wasn't as advanced back then. I was, kind of really just getting started. So, now like for my influencer marketing is so different. The way I do it at ClickUp now, it's all through ClickUp, right? Someone fills out a form for accounting, everything else. Everything's automated on the back end. So that's an awesome part for that. The other thing I would say is even the content wasn't as good. I learned a lot. Like influencers back then had a lot to learn too. And I think I'll give you 3 things I think really help. One is that brands were trying to do too much and telling the creators what to do. I think that's a huge problem. Creators should create. You should obviously have, a one pager of do's and don'ts, examples of posts that have done really well that drove a lot of traffic, things like that. But you should never, ever tell exactly the creator, like, hey, do this, unless it's a certain campaign. But you always want them to do what they know their audience loves. That's a huge thing for me that I think back then the brands wanted too much control. Number two is process. Like I remember having to have the influencers post and having to round them up and reach back out and say, hey, we need the, the insights from your post. And we had to like message them. And so that way I could go back to the brands and show them how well things performed. And that was tough, right? Because a lot of the APIs wouldn't allow you to automatically sync. They still don't perfectly for a lot of it, especially on like LinkedIn. But yes, you'd have to go back and ask the creators for everything. I remember working out of Google Sheets, which now would be a complete disaster for me. So yeah, now everything's automated. As soon as I work out a deal with an influencer, I have them fill out a form. They're already set up to be paid by accounting, whatever that rate is. They already know what they're supposed to work on in ClickUp. And then I have a process in which they can upload it as a guest and click up to me, and I can see everything and approve it or ask for changes.
Where did you find yourself working with smaller people back then, or do you actually work with smaller people now?
Great question. Back then, brands didn't want anyone small. They only wanted large. And we started realizing, I was like, hey, look, I remember pushing back with the brands because I was like, look, I've ran a lot of campaigns. And I mean, we paid Kim Kardashian, we paid the highest of that, like the people with the most followers multiple times. And they would do well for certain brands, but they also wouldn't for others. Like I've seen for Sugar Bear Hair, the Kardashians did amazing, right? But then another brand, the founders of Fit Tea had started Happy Tea, and they wanted to put a lot of money into that. Same way with Kardashians, just thinking it would work the same, and it did not. It did not resonate with our audience, and it was a complete. And we pushed against that, but had to go that way. But I kept saying, hey, look, I think a real campaign that's successful has a few what we would call your thought leaders or your strongest influencers, and you have your macro. Those with 100 to 600K, whatever. Then I really like the micros too. Like I've noticed, like some with 10 to 20K would really perform, and for the cost paid, it was definitely worth it. So I kind of learned what I thought was that hotspot of mixing all three of those, having a few top, good amount of macro and micro. And some would listen, but at the beginning it was the opposite. I was telling brands, hey, stop just spending all your money on the expensive. Let's spread around these smaller. And now I think people are really getting obsessed with the smaller. And to this day, I still am. Like I love finding someone early who I know is going to grow, because I grow with them. As they grow, they've already been with the brand. It doesn't look like they're, like just all of a sudden selling out as they've gotten more followers. So, I mean, you nailed it perfectly. I back then was pushing away from brands to just do large. And now brands are going after small and not as much large, when sometimes a large influencer can still be effective if you think of it right and have a good long-term plan.
It's the same across almost any channel, to be honest. If you're trying to build a podcast, it's not necessarily the biggest guest is going to bring in the most viral potential, because the biggest guests likely don't need you as much. They're probably doing you a favor if they go on your podcast, so they may not share it, or they may do it just like once and then quit. The smaller guests care so much, and this might be their first podcast, or it might be their biggest podcast they've been on, and they want to promote it like crazy. And you can't really put a number on that. Plus, I think we both know that the best content just usually wins out, and the best content is not always made by the biggest account. Like that, the size of account doesn't really matter. In fact, when I felt even better about the quality of my own content when I had a smaller account as opposed to a bigger account, because I feel like you can just get away with more when you have more followers, so you don't try as hard a lot of the time. So it's kind of a crapshoot. You have no idea what's really going to work, and I guess that brings me to the idea of like testing, how long it's taken you to figure out if there are any patterns or frameworks you use to kind of figure out that something will actually work or not.
I remember when I first met or really heard of you before I reached out on Twitter, you were just starting to grow your Twitter account. You were so calm about it. I was like, hey man, I like what you're doing. You're like, yeah, I'll get this thing to like, 50K plus, it's just something I'm focusing on. I was like, wow. And that's when I really started paying attention to all the platforms again, was around that same time frame. So I think that's why I'm not always looking at the following. I've seen such a mix of what performs well. I've seen someone on Twitter write a thread for me with 13K that just through the roof. And I've had someone with 120K write a thread and, not much from it. So again, I think it's all about the content, like you said, and not just about like, hey, speaking to them on the content, understanding that influencer. Like, do they understand your brand? Have they used it? Do they really solve a pain point? Will their audience relate to it? All of these things, right? And there's other things you can do to get more likes and views, but will that attribute into my world of more workspaces? You don't know. So you can always do the controversy part, right? You can always have a little controversy in the comments, and that does well, but is that really going to drive you traffic? Probably not. People are just going to go in the comments, eat their popcorn, and enjoy it. So what I'm learning is how to really take the time, really find that content, and I guess bring the influencer to the right content.
Yeah, it's tricky because you see companies out like right now. I don't know if you've seen what Radio Shack has been trying to do.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm not even going to talk about that strategy, but people will just go to extreme lengths and do crazy stuff that has nothing to do with any business. And that's something to be cautious of as well. So it can be hard to find, especially when you're talking about creating content. There's people within ClickUp or any other company that are kind of embedded into your culture and they know what to create, what not to create. But then when you're working with an influencer, it's adding this extra layer of like, they're their own company and they don't perfectly align with you. How do you make sure that even though an influencer is separate from your company, that they really still kind of align with you and get it? How do you align with them on that?
Great question. I really like that question. That's something I'm still improving on. I really, really take the time to watch the influencers' content first. I truly do. On their own, I watch the content. I see what they're putting out. I see how consistent they are, because they might make one video that's great for my brand, but that might have been one video they did one off, and the real content they get a lot of views off of is something different, right? Something like the Radio Shack or something. I've had that happen where people are doing ridiculous stuff and then they'll kind of come and try to make some brand content, but it's not really them. So what I do is I watch them for a while, and then I talk to most all of our influencers. I'm not just using my team. My team will find them and source, but a lot of times I do a call just like we're doing to get to know them, to fully understand them. I have some cool questions I ask them. I like to ask what's the hardest thing they've ever done. I like to ask their habits. I like to understand are they someone who really cares about being productive? Because that's what ClickUp cares about. And if they're not, look, I might could use them for a specific campaign, but as a long-term influencer, probably not. And that's mostly all I'm interested in. So I do a call with them. And then I also have one of my team reach out to them and do a training to make sure they really understand ClickUp. Because it's easy to tell me, hey, I know ClickUp, but then when they go and make a video for the product, they're just scrolling and they have no task in there. And I can tell they've never used ClickUp really. And that was happening in the early days. But now I have them do a training, a one-on-one with my team, sometimes in a group, to make sure they fully understand ClickUp. And then my colleague can hit me back and say, hey, this person really, great person, but they're not really getting ClickUp. And we'll still find a way to somehow work with them, but not on the long-term basis, because I really do need those people who understand it, who understand productivity, and are going to add value to their followers. Because again, that's the strategy I'm learning. And another thing I'm learning is, we'll get into it, but I'd love to touch base on you with growing internal influencers. You're now an internal influencer, and I think it's so much easier to grow a person now than it is a brand. 5 years ago, you could grow a brand account, but unless you go on TikTok and really do the Ryanair or the Duolingo and get a character and do that route, which isn't for every brand, I think it's easier to grow people.
No, I totally agree. And it's been that way for a while, but brands are still a little bit hesitant just because it takes a little bit away from the company's image and puts it back onto the people. But it's easily the best way to invest in your own branding and social strategy for sure. And that extra filter that you built in at ClickUp, where you actually make sure they use the product, I know that sounds simple to everybody listening, but I think if you've ever worked with influencers before or businesses that do this, you'd kind of be shocked at how few businesses actually have that set up and don't really care if they use the product or not, which is a huge thing, because the influencer thing, everybody knows if you're doing an influencer video, it's pretty clear. But you can still also tell if you've never used the product, or if they've if they wouldn't even care if it's not related. And so having that alignment, at least on that, but it's a tough balance, because one of the first things you said on this very interview is that brands were trying to align too much with creators before and trying to give them too much direction. So it's there is a fine line there for sure. And I'm curious, looking back on the content side, how your perception of what good influencer content is and how that's changed over time.
Good influencer content does a few things. One, if you tell us, you and I both know, telling a story is huge, right? Telling a story, showing some vulnerability, and solving a problem. If you can do those three things, and you don't have to in every single one. You don't want to come here and say you have to follow that format every single time for a successful post or whatever it may be. But if you can, it's money. So I think I can tell what good content is by making a lot of mistakes with content. I've gotten off a call with an influencer and thought they were going to send me the best video back and just gotten something that was so out of line because they just said the right things at the beginning, which is why I added that extra layer and to kind of make them see it. And I'm like the friendly, nice guy, right? So it's good to have someone else come in who's more techie, who is more like, hey, but how you actually, like, what problem are you solving? And I have like a format they're looking for to make sure in the content they're going to post that it at least does two of the three, right? It's got to at least do two of the three. It's got to be answering a question. It's got to be telling a story, or it's got to be really relating, to the audience in some way. And if it doesn't, it's just not going to work out. And we can stop that ahead of time and try to guide them. But again, like you said, it's a fine line because they might be very adamant about, hey, I know this is going to work. And there's sometimes you do have to trust the influencer. So I think the game of influencer marketing, that's why I know it can't be automated, because there is a lot of human touch and feel into really getting something proper. And when you get a video back, for the most part, it's going to do well. Now on TikTok, there's been some videos I thought wasn't going to do well and just crushed. So on TikTok, I'm still learning. And I'd love to tell you I'm an expert at it today. I'm still I'm growing my brand a little bit. I'm in testing different types of content. But I think you can really see those who understand their audience. Those who understand their audience, it truly tells in the content they make.
For sure. I want to focus on the creators a little bit because there are two sides of this equation. There's like from your end when you're actually sourcing people and trying to get good content for the company. But then on the flip side, there are the creators that are doing the content and also presenting themselves and trying to get these kind of jobs, these campaigns. For somebody that's just starting out, of which there are probably many in listening into this right now, if you've never done one before, an influencer campaign, how would you approach getting one as a micro influencer? Let's say somebody has like 1,000 followers. It's very small. They're just starting out. There's not a lot, but how would you try to get a campaign with a company that you actually liked? I
love it. And I really hope influencers do listen to this because it pains me to see certain influencers not doing this. To me, and again, this might even sound simple, but I'll put it in terms that I hope give action items. To me, so let's say you find that brand you really like. You watch their content, you see what they're doing. What I would do is I would first reach out and just introduce myself. Like, hey, I love the content you're doing. This is, it's good. Or be honest, hey, I think you're doing well in this aspect. I think you're not doing well here. What would you think if you had a video like this on your page? I would create maybe two shorter, whatever your style is. If it's YouTube, that's a little more effort, and I get that. But if it's TikTok, it's not too much of your time. You're already going to create content to grow it anyway, so you may as well grow with the brand. So what I would do is I would make maybe 2 or 3 videos really, really showing that I learned, what the value points are of that company, and something that's different than they've been doing, a different perspective. And then I would send the videos in the email already posted and explain why. And be like, hey, look, I only have 1,000 followers, so this one didn't blow up, but look at all the points I got across. I'd pull some positive comments. look, someone still signed up to, let's use ClickUp as an example. I'd make a video speaking about ClickUp, and I'm sure you'd be shocked at how people will comment, what, I'm checking ClickUp out today. And so I'd say, hey, look, I made this free video. Someone checked out ClickUp today. I know it's just one, but imagine if I started growing with you and as I grow. So again, I think the 3 steps you can do are reaching out, speaking, what you see and where you see improvements, but don't just speak it, show it. Already show it. Like, hey, I saw this and I thought it would work well and I did. And let's say one of them does do well, then you're even more in, hey, I did a video that's 3x'd every video you've done. I'm not sure how much you're investing in, your marketing department or this. I'm looking for X amount because I'm a smaller creator and I want to prove myself. So give me that shot. And if you're genuine and you show that passion, look, sure, I get tons of emails every day. My email is chris@clickup.com. I get a lot of spam emails, but I'll always notice when someone writes to me personally, and there's definitely a few influencers who've done that. There's a new thing I'm doing that I definitely wanted to talk to you about. I've been going on Twitter Spaces, and on Twitter Spaces, I do what's called a ClickUp brand deal competition. And I ask people to do exactly what I'm telling them to do right now. I'm saying, hey, come to this competition with a fresh idea, maybe a video already ready. If not, a pitch to me about the video, and I'll choose 3 winners and I'll sign you to a brand deal today. And I've gotten 7 strong creators who are now posting for us. I've only done 2, but each one has a ton of people in it. And, I feel like I've had stories of people saying it kind of changed their life. Like now they're getting an extra 1,000 or 1,500 a month that they weren't planning on getting, that they won this brand deal. Now they have confidence to go get more. So it's been really cool. And I challenge creators to do that. I think it's easy in the creator space to feel entitled. Like, oh, I've gotten this many followers now, or I just have to focus on getting this many. You don't. You really, we're not looking just at followers. I'm looking at, and TikTok, your followers don't matter. Someone with 2K can still hit 1 million views the same, not the same, but in a strong way, you still can. So my goal is put some effort in, learn the brand, and fully think it through. And I guarantee you'll start getting branded. I guarantee it. I'm giving them out via email, this week. I've done it.
So basically what you're saying is let's spam the email. Let's just spam your email right now.
Spam the email, but also create some content and tag them. Tag them because look, most of these social media managers have Sprout or whatever company, and they're seeing all the tags. Like their job is to go check it. So if they start seeing it, and they become familiar with you. Like my social team has told me, hey Chris, this one person, sure they only have 1,200 followers, but they get ClickUp and they're telling a good story, and I've hired them too. There's a girl named Sasha who we just hired the same way because she's been tweeting at us and delivered. So I think just actually keep trying. Don't be looking for the money first. Earn it. Go earn it, because that's what we all do.
For sure. No, this speaks to the power of permissionless creation. You really don't need anybody's permission to just create a video. Like ClickUp is not going to be mad if you start making videos about ClickUp, as long as they're not
Never.
or anything. But if a hiring manager sees that you are, or a social or an influencer marketing manager or whatever sees that you're just creating a ton of content that's really beneficial for the brand, that only has upside for you, the creator. And there are a lot of different ways that can happen. But even just starting with that as the first step, I found, I've done this myself, just creating ahead of time and then making the intro later. There are a lot of different ways you can do this, but I think that permissionless creation kind of is always going to be a part of that equation, because you want to produce some value up front for the brand, and it just makes it a lot easier to see what the brand on the brand side, what they're going to get. And then it really lowers that barrier. So even if you have 1,000 followers, it's kind of appealing still to give you a smaller brand deal.
It is. I really like that term, permissionless content. That's a good term that should be known, because I don't know why it's so, like, people aren't doing it. I really don't know why it's almost confusing. I thought they would have picked up on it by now, but I still don't see as many as I think should be. I see a lot of people asking for brand deals, but not like doing any proactive work for it.
For the people that you work with, typically, how long do you work with somebody that creates consistently good videos? Do you ever find that there's kind of a diminishing returns point where they've just talked enough about you that the audience is kind of done, or do you find that you can just keep going in perpetuity?
Great question. Most of the time you can go in perpetuity. Sometimes I think it does lose its allure. I think that 3 to 6 months is what I usually sign people to. And then from there I check back and see, and I'd love to say I sign every single one, but we don't. And some lose the work ethic too. Some get a bigger brand deal somewhere else. But there are those who stay with you, and those who stay with you are the ones who continue to innovate. They continue to find new ways to reach other audiences. So there are definitely those who stay with us. 3 to 6 months is a good little time frame to check. But you do have to keep innovating. You can't make the same videos, right? You make the same videos, they play out. Like I just hired a guy who's a really cool TikToker who comes into random places and sings, right? He just starts singing. We took him to the Padres game. He started singing and kind of snuck ClickUp in there. That's awesome. But now next month, we can't do the same video. So now we're working on a new type. We're still using music and getting creative. But again, I think that's on the brand too. Don't just lean on the creator, like work with the creator. And I think that's when the most magic comes, is when you're saying, hey, creator, we did great here. I don't think this video is going to do it again. I know it works for you. Let's innovate. What other market do you think you could jump in, or what are some other ideas you've been wanting to do that correlates with productivity or what I'm trying to do? And then we come to these ideas together. So I think a lot of times the big issue is the brands just think it's a money play off, and they either just give them a brand sheet, give them the money, and hope the magic's going to happen. It takes work, like it does. I take calls all day with creators. I don't know how everyone works at other companies, but I'm quite sure they're not putting as much time in. And I think it's on the brands too. I think they should. So the creators should also, have that open dialogue and be open to putting a little time in. I think they also want to get paid and be like, hey, let me do my thing, but they should still speak about what they're doing and be in contact. So the effort can come from both sides to make it perfect.
Yeah, that was kind of part two of my question there, is once you feel pretty good about somebody and you're working with them for a long time, the videos it'll become a little bit more difficult as you run out of ideas. Your original ideas will be executed on, and then you got to come up with new stuff all the time. Do you have any tips, tricks, frameworks for how to generate new ideas when your initial ones are done and you've got to kind of keep going with something totally different? Do you have any, I don't know, processes or meetings that you have, or how do you approach that to just make sure you're not running out of ideas?
Yeah, every 2 weeks I meet with the social team, because they're so plugged in. They're watching social, they're seeing it all the time. I'm like, hey, look, what's worked well the past few weeks? what's starting to pop off. And then we have a running task. And in that task, like every day I consume content, not just because I'm like addicted to it, because I need to know what's going on out there. You can't know the trends without watching for the trends, because the trends, especially on TikTok, I mean, it's a week and it's out, 1 week everyone's, my money don't jiggle. The next they're doing this day. It goes so fast. And if you don't catch up, you're out. So we keep watching what's doing well. We look for those trends. So in the comments, I'll say, hey, has anyone seen this one? And then they'll comment the trends they've seen, because we all have different For You pages. So that's a big thing we do is actually just watching the content and staying true to it and commenting and thinking about how we can do it our way. Number 2 is I talk to other creators. Like I talk to those in the know, the ones who are growing the fastest. Just like how if I want to ask you about what's really working thread-wise on Twitter, you're going to know because you're doing it, you're seeing it. Same with these other creators. So I'll ask creators from different spaces. I stay in contact with them, even if they're ones I'm not working with. There's a lot who are my friends that don't make sense for ClickUp, but I'll still help them out in some way and help them find another brand deal in exchange for saying, what's working for you? What's this new strategy? Like I know this one guy, Frankie. Frankie's a genius. Frankie's just breaking into gyms because Equinox is so expensive and he's living in New York, and he's just seeing how many different gyms he can sneak into without getting caught. And it's going viral. People love it. They're following the story. And so I'm like, how can I turn that into ClickUp? Do I need to start breaking into other people's offices and seeing where they're not being productive? That's how these ideas come about. So to be quite honest, I talk to creators, I talk to my social team, and I keep watching. There's no other playbook I'm really running.
This is a big question around the influencer content that people are creating, is how trend heavy you should be. Because on the one hand, so like with Instagram back in the day, maybe a trend, I guess there weren't as many trends if I'm looking back really, but it probably lasts a little bit longer. Now with TikTok, it's just, you get tired of it so quickly because everybody starts capitalizing on it and your whole For You page becomes this one trend. So it dies out really quickly. So I am curious to know what the split is between, like when you're talking to a creator, are you focusing more on what trends can we capitalize on now? Or are you focusing more on what trends can we create?
Great question. I'm focusing on both, honestly. And the way I go about that is I say, hey, look, what's something quick? Because I'm not just paying for one video a month for anyone. Everyone's doing it. If I'm paying someone, I want multiple videos a month. And I usually try for 4, and 2, I try to hop on trends, right? Current trends that are quick. I say, go for 2 that you believe in, that you see, that you think resonates with your audience, go for it. And then the other 2, I want more long-term. I want something that I can use later on down the road, something cool using the product, something that's not trying to jump on these trends, because something is lost when you try to jump on a trend. You're just following that trend. It's not all about adding value. And at the end of the day, I always like, this may take a year, this may take 2 years, but my goal is people say like ClickUp's content is just giving value. A lot of ClickUp's content is helping me. I've learned from a lot of people that ClickUp's paid, because if you look at a lot of my content, that's what it is. Like when I pay someone on Twitter, I don't ask them just to write a thread about how great ClickUp is. It's not valuable. I ask them to give back to their followers and then maybe put it in a ClickUp doc, or maybe show where ClickUp helped if it did, but only if it's real. I don't ask them to just lie and say, hey, I use ClickUp to manage this. People can smell it, feel it out. It doesn't feel good, frankly. But what I do is I say, hey, look, focus on something short term. So if there is something, for TikTok, if there's a trend going on, sure, jump on that trend and see if there's a way to bring it back to us. If there is, there's not, no harm, no foul. On Twitter, I'll say, hey, look, if there's something going on where if the markets are crashing, maybe you can speak about how the markets are crashing, and you can use ClickUp as an example of something we've done well to prepare for that. That's cool. I love that. Maybe you can talk about the world of SEO and how ClickUp, gets X amount of site visits a month, and what work we put into to get there. That research is great, and that way you're not just talking about using ClickUp, you're actually showing an example of a good company, and you can use other companies in that thread as well. I want people to learn from it, and almost not even know that it's a ClickUp ad, because that's how a lot of my content is. A lot of what I'm asking is, I'm not asking to say, go to clickup.com and sign up today. I'm asking to give value, and hopefully they do notice it's from ClickUp. They see ClickUp in that value they're getting.
Can you give me an idea of the breakdown of the channels that you're paying influencers for? Is it just TikTok? Sure. Or is it YouTube as well? Like where else?
My main focus is Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn. That's my main focus is. It's not that I'm not doing anything else. IG Reels too. IG Reels we take and do, and Need to do better on YouTube Shorts, if I'm being honest. But those are my main focuses, and that's internal and external. So, I have goals every month to hit a certain amount of impressions on each. And, I do it from external influencers and from internal. So like Gaurav is becoming a strong player. He's growing very fast on Twitter. And his impressions are great. But I also want to make sure I don't just all of a sudden start having him talk about just ClickUp and then we lose that momentum. Right. But yes, those are the main platforms. My reasoning are from testing. They deliver the most workspaces. TikTok is still a little harder to track, but I believe in it. And I know that regardless if I'm tracking it perfectly, I'm aware that how big that's becoming. And even if I can't say I'm making as much money from it as I am YouTube, I still know that the long term, TikTok could start taking some share from YouTube. I don't know. I'm not going to even try to predict all that, but I know that TikTok is hot, and I know I'm putting a lot to it. And I have a certain spend for each. I have a certain spend for each that I do every month, and I try to get the most out of it. I know a lot of creators love to come in with high prices, but I'm pretty good at saying, hey, look, I'm not asking for as much work. And again, I'm not asking you just to make your page all ClickUp. I'm asking for you to give value to your followers that you already would. So I'm always paying you for something you'd already do, a tweet you'd already kind of do with ClickUp slightly in there. So I'm not hurting your reach. I'm not taking from you. In all honesty, I'm more just trying to add to you. And then I always set them all up as affiliates, so they get paid monthly from anyone who signs up for ClickUp for an entire year, which is helpful too, because people do sign up from these posts and things like that. What platforms do you think are the best?
Well, I've personally not run too many influencer campaigns, but for branding, I think TikTok, you have to be there, even if you can't track it. It's possible it's driving conversions. It's possible it's just driving awareness. Either way, I think it's where you need to be. With YouTube, if you can really do it right, I think YouTube is probably one of the best channels that you can invest in, just because there's so much you can do with it. And that's kind of what I wanted to ask you next, is about longer form influencer content. You probably don't get a ton of it. Maybe YouTube is the only channel where you really get a longer form piece of influencer content. But with the few pieces that you do get that are just a bit longer, 15-minute video, 10-minute video, whatever, how do you think about repurposing it, or do you repurpose it? Is that a part of your strategy for like breaking down an influencer video on YouTube into multiple TikToks, or do you kind of just let it be native on the channel it was intended for?
Great question. I hear people go back and forth on this. I mean, look, the Gary Vee strategy, people can act like it's played out, whatever, but the Gary Vee strategy works. You get long form content, you break it down, it does work. Now, that being said, if that's all you're doing, it's a mistake. So, I've seen a lot of people just be like, oh, I'm just going to shoot these long videos, cut them down, and that's my TikToks, and that's this, and that's great. And it doesn't, because at the end of the day, if it's chopped up, it's still not perfect. A few of them might go viral and might do great, but you need to make content specific for each platform. But at the end of the day, I do believe in still getting the most of your long form content. So I'll give you an example. Zeb, what we've been starting to do with him is it's tough to really have him post and do things like that all the time. But what I can do is I can create a video. I can film Zeb. I can take 2 hours and I can film him, and I can ask him 10 different topics. And we're doing that right now. You'll see some of his LinkedIn posts going up. So I'll take those and I'll get like 10 minute and a half videos, and I'll take those minute and a half videos and then I'll put it on LinkedIn, because I think videos are doing well on LinkedIn. That's a thing I'm pushing. I can show it from my own page. They're doing well. So I'll take that minute and a half, and it doesn't have to be a 30-second. It can really be a little bit of a longer video. So I'll do that minute and a half video with a very short caption from Zeb, so it's not as much work. Then I can take that video and I can make a Twitter thread from it, right? Like what he talks about, we can kind of take that from it and then give it back to him, let him put in his words and say 10 times. So he doesn't have to write a whole thread. He already spoke this down. He just makes it sound like him. And that's what I've been doing, and it's working quite well. And then I'll take a few and I'll put them on TikTok. I've had a few of his videos do 800 views. I've had a few hit 20K. So I believe in a mixture of both. I believe in the long form content and getting the most out of it, but don't make that your only strategy. Still go out and shoot just TikToks, go out and shoot YouTube videos, go out and shoot, videos just for LinkedIn, have intention to it. But when you do have the longer, definitely get the most out of them and break them down, because I've taken those 90-second LinkedIns, made 30-second TikToks, and been successful. Yeah,
for sure. You have to do both of those, because if you're just, like you said, just doing the Gary Vee break it down thing, then you're basically missing all the context around it that made the original video good in the first place. And you can kind of supplement that by, if let's say on Twitter, you're going to post a little tiny snippet of the video, like a quote from it or something as a tweet. you're missing a lot of context, but you have the opportunity to fill in the context in other tweets around it as well. And that applies to really any platform. So it is definitely a mistake to only use that as the strategy, but it's also a mistake to ignore it. So I was just I was curious about that. And I'm assuming that your agreements with your influencers state that you're able to use content pretty much everywhere, and it's not just one thing and it's done, but you can share it and kind of help blow them up as well.
Absolutely. And that's usually the goal. You know, like with TikTok, there's this new thing called Spark Ads. I'm sure you've probably heard or seen it. But what Spark Ads allows me to do is I can say, hey, look, creator, I get that your feed is precious to you. I want you to keep it. So why don't we do a Spark Ad in which you create the video and then it doesn't go on your feed. It just goes on the For You page. And then they give me access to pay it in the background. So I can say, hey, this video is doing well. I'm going to put X amount of dollars. I'm going to increase it. It's doing really well. And then they're still in it. Other people still find them and they gain followers from it, but it's not on their feed. It's not hurting their feed or anything like that. So it's kind of a low risk, high reward for both parties. So that's been a great one as well, for sure, if you haven't tried it.
Yeah, I love that. I wish that any other platform really worked that well. Like Twitter ads, Twitter ads are not amazing. It would be cool to have something like that where you could. But yeah, like I get it. Your feed is precious too. As a creator, you want to have that real estate where you can just show the best of the best and really highlight yourself. And it could come across as a certain way if it's all ClickUp stuff or if it's all Riverside stuff, and you want to make sure that there's a good balance there, or that it's all just you. So I like that. And are there any other frameworks or cool things going on right now that you're learning in the moment about influencer marketing that you're kind of excited about?
That's a really good question. I'm learning about the internal influencers. I'm having a lot of fun getting better at that and building them across every platform. Because as you know, growing on Twitter is quite different from growing on TikTok, and figuring out who can grow on what platform. I think that's a strategy that I'm so happy and excited to get ahead of. And, I think I can really do well with that here. Let me think. Another one is getting creators to create videos that are good ads, like almost like TikTok style, but still using those ads for Facebook and everything else, which I don't think that's new or groundbreaking, but it's something that I'm learning in the tech space. And I think the other big one is really mastering how to have a creator and your product, a tech product like mine, in the same video and be effective. I think that's the one that I'm still learning. That's really cool. I would say it's involving MoGraph more. Most people just have a creator or have this, but they don't actually have the motion graphics people to come in and really make these videos look cool and take it to another level. I mean, sure, there's people like Zach King who jump through a wall and things like that. But what about, I foresee like where what I really want ClickUp's content to get to is someone making cool content that's fun to consume, that still can be funny or joking, but then switch it back into tech. I think that's something that's not really been done yet that I'm trying to figure out. I'm working on it. I've had my vision, but it's hard to get a creator to fully pull it off. And sometimes I need a creator to do their part and then come back with our MoGraph team to show the cool product and things like that. But, using After Effects and stuff like that in videos, I do think is going to start popping up more because people are getting more, open to the metaverse and, open to tech, and things have to change, right? But then there's also the part where videos still do the best on TikTok, just coming from the phone and just looking real. So I think the third and last thing is really finding a way to have a video that's off your phone and looks generic, but can still look polished towards the end and show off your product in a cool way. I think that's like a new way that I haven't seen anyone fully master yet.
Flip side, and I'm not asking you to call anybody out here, but what are you seeing at, like, what kind of content is cheesy to you? Influencer content. What kind of stuff is ineffective you would not do yourself, but that you see all the time?
Oh man. Honestly, I think it's a lot of the brands trying to hop on the trends. They don't do it properly, right? Like they just think, oh yeah, it's like they just ask their department or who is not creators to just hop on this trend. So you see them like doing the dance or whatever, and they're just trying to throw their brand in. It's painful for me. It's so painful. Also, I really hate when someone tries to pay, like a really big influencer, like I know that costs them a lot of money to do something that just doesn't make sense. I won't call anyone out, but there's something I've seen recently where they it's a great influencer, it's an awesome influencer, and they pay them, but the correlation just makes no sense, and you're confused after the video. I think those pain me. Anything where people are trying to hop on a trend or a dance just because they think it's cool, or just hop on TikTok because they think they should. That's just super cringe. It really hurts me to see, and I hate thinking of the waste of dollars and also the creators who do it. Like there was like I guess I will call it, like there was like the Bang Energy for a while. You couldn't scroll on Instagram without seeing Bang Energy, right? In some way, and check out the founder. And I think anything over the top, pushing the brand too much now is like people are way too immune. You're way too behind. You better change fast if you're still trying those type of videos.
Yeah, we're aligned there. Well, at the end of everything, we've talked for a little bit over 40 minutes here. After all that we've discussed, what is still top of mind for you? What is there something that we have not covered yet, but really we should have?
I think we did a really good job. I would just say the last thing is to really to don't discount learning from experts, but don't also take advantage of the creators. Like I think really finding a good way to work with creators long term that's fair. Like don't try to just pay them one off, learn what they did and break off. It doesn't make sense. And I'm seeing a lot of people do that. And don't just throw money at a creator because they have a lot of followers. I think we have touched on almost everything, but the biggest things for me in influencer marketing are take your time, truly learn the creators and understand what their purpose is and if it aligns. And then back on the creators, same side. Like don't just take any brand deal that comes your way. Learn to be that creator that says no. And because those are the creators that I feel the most confident in. When I know that they've said no to other brand deals, when I know they could have 20 and they're just focusing on 2 or 3 that align with them because they still care about their growth. So, I think really not taking any shortcuts, learning the creators learning the brands. I just think it's huge and can't be said enough because otherwise, there's failure in the industry. But there is a lot of people who've been questionable at influencer marketing. I think it's obvious it's not going anywhere. It's just changing like everything else, but it's definitely not going anywhere. And I've learned a lot from coming from doing influencer marketing for water bottles to now to software. There's a lot more to learn. There's a lot more thought, a lot more of getting them to learn the product and making sure they understand the product because there is a product to be learned, right? It's hard to talk about something you don't know and you should never try it.
And yet so many people do. So many people do. Well, Chris Cunningham from ClickUp, again, thanks so much for coming on. Learned a lot about influencer marketing myself. Highly recommend following Chris across socials. Right now, as we end, I want to give you kind of a platform to first off share where people can find you and connect with you online, but also just give an idea of what you're doing, what you're working on, and where you're at in life right now.
Yeah. So founding member at ClickUp, been here since the beginning. I love everything about it. I'm obsessed with it. My goal here is just branding and building cool influencers. So if you are an influencer and you like a shot and you like what you heard, please reach out to me. Or if you even just want some help, I'm very open. I respond to everyone on Twitter, I'm Chris ClickUp. On Instagram, I'm just at Cunningham. And on TikTok, I'm Cunningham with 2 M's, working on getting just Cunningham too. But I'd love to help anyone out and always looking for new creators. So please hit me up. And where I'm at in life, I'm still starstruck at how fast we've grown. I'm very grateful, but I still feel like we have a long ways to go. It's a very competitive space. And again, my world is just trying to figure out how to add you guys value and save you time through our marketing. So that's it.
Awesome. Chris, thanks so much for hopping on. I'll have to have you on again soon.
Absolutely, Blake. Thank you so much.